Manchester City, the accused cheats, are taking on Nottingham Forest, the proven cheats. You tricky trees, you. You're just hoping that Erling Haaland, that Viking goal-scoring god, can whip out his version of a Leviathan axe and start hacking that Forest to bits. Don't you just know there's going to be someone in the comments? Get in the comments below and make sure you're getting in there and telling me that, Manchester City fan calling another football club cheats, how dare he? Oh, it works on many levels. Ironically, sarcastically, and even factually. That joke actually works on many levels, to be honest. So Nottingham Forest, the proven cheats, and Manchester City, the accused cheats, 3rd versus 4th in the Premier League table. Have a look at this. It's getting tasty. The final stages of this season with a 6-point gap between 3rd place and 10th place. So there is absolutely zero margin for error for the rest of the season for these clubs looking into getting into these Champions League spots, which now 5th gets you a Champions League spots as well, which is fantastic. But Nottingham Forest could well find themselves in 5th at the end of this weekend if they do not get the results they want. And I mean, yeah, it's a very realistic possibility. But they've got a goal-scoring god of their own, haven't they? This season in particular, in Chris Wood, who's been in sensational form this season. He's the only player to score a goal against Manchester City since they've been promoted since 2022. And during that time as well, since 2022, the cheating that got them into this position is why we are now facing Nottingham Forest for a place in the Champions League for next season. So, I mean, spending gets you places, doesn't it, in football? Let's be honest. And here they are doing what they're doing this season, Nottingham Forest, but they're slowly starting to decline. And Chris Wood, is he quite the god as Erling Haaland? Probably not, but they do share 38 goals between them, with Haaland getting 20 Premier League goals to his name and Chris Wood getting 18 Premier League goals to his name as well. He's been in sensational form, he really has. 11 goal involvements for Chris Wood in the last 9 games as well, which is sensational. But City have been turning it around lately. If that league table, we've been climbing up it pretty well this season, finding ourselves in 4th position right now. No team has scored more goals in 2025 than Manchester City as well. So, I mean, even though we have been a little bit lackluster, can I call us that? This season we've been pretty pants, to be honest, pretty crap. But we did beat Forest, which is arguably one of the craziest results of the season, for us anyway, because that was slap bang in the middle of our worst run of the season. Crazy result, considering how Forest were arguably at the peak of their football at that point in time. They rock up to the Etihad and get turned over comfortably against a Manchester City side that had lost 4-0 to Spurs. Do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely crazy result. We'd lost 8 games in like a row. We were absolutely a dire football side at that point, but somehow we managed to beat Nottingham Forest 3-0 and comfortably as well, which was a very strange result. Let's have a look at the team form as well. As you can see, the Nottingham Forest form recently has not been great in the Premier League in particular, with no wins in 3. You argue that the draw against Arsenal is actually quite a good result because it's Arsenal, 2nd in the table. But they were against a very lacklustre Arsenal, I thought. Arsenal were pretty poor in that game, and it was very much a defensive, solid performance from Forest. They scraped through against Ipswich on penalties, even in the FA Cup against a struggling Ipswich side. But you never know with this Forest side. I do think Nuno gets them playing some very emotional football. He's an emotional manager, and I feel like it's this stage of the season where your emotions can get found out as a football manager. And Mikel Arteta's exactly the same for me. He's in that same boat of uncontrollable emotions. And I think Nuno's in that same boat for me as someone whose emotions can spill over. You know, they've been having some incredibly erratic results this season. 7-0 win and a 5-0 loss in the space of 3 weeks is proof of that. Absolute insanity results for Nottingham Forest. But, I mean, the form's mixed. The same can be said about Manchester City. Again, this is all competitions. But you look at those 3 reds, those 3 red losses that Manchester City have got there. Real Madrid are 2 of them, and Liverpool's the other one. So, yeah, as bad as it is to lose these games, we don't want to be losing these games, and there's no point saying, it's okay to lose these games. It's not okay, because our standards are higher than Forest, but still, Real Madrid twice and Liverpool, you can understand it. Outside of those performances and the Arsenal spanking that we got, which is still haunts me, the Spurs performance was pretty solid for me, and the Newcastle was a very strong performance against Newcastle as well, which I thought was really good. And we're into the latter stages of the FA Cup, so we've got other things to think about as well, which Forest do not have for the rest of this season. Having a look at the injuries going into this game, Nottingham Forest have got Carlos Miguel, who is out. That is it. And I doubt he will be playing, because Matt Sells is going to be between the sticks for Nottingham Forest, and he is on cards for a Golden Glove this season, with the most clean sheets out of any Premier League side this season. Nottingham Forest, Matt Sells could well be picking up the Golden Glove this season. So even though they've definitely got a goal threat going forward with Chris Wood, as I've already mentioned, you've got Hudson-Odoi as a potential threat, and Alanga as a threat, and Gibbs White behind them, all very threatening players. They've got a solid defence that's keeping the most clean sheets in the Premier League as well, which is a lot of the reason that balance of both ends of the pitch is pretty solid for Nottingham Forest and why they are where they are right now. City, yeah, we've got a bit of a crisis going on again. No one's going to shed a tear for Manchester City and the injuries, but I mean, City fans, we can definitely look at that injury list in terms of those three centre-backs and think, yeah, it's not ideal. Not ideal at all. Manuel Akanji, John Stones, Nathan Ake, arguably all of them out for the rest of the season now, which is crazy to think. Thank God we went and got Husanov and Vita Heiss. I mean, imagine if we didn't. Imagine if we didn't sign those players. Where would we be right now? We would be dipping into the academy. Simpson Pusey, that's who would be playing games like this, and it would be a very worrying end to the season. Rodri, of course, who's now back in training. I mean, speaking of shedding a tear, that was a happy tear, that was. Seeing him kicking a football. What a player he is going to be. And next season, we're going to see the best of Rodri. And Oscar Bob as well, who's been out for the whole season as well, which is really, really disappointing. But let's have a look at the predicted starting 11 for... Let's start with Forest, because I think they've had a mixed season this season. They've had, in terms of formation, when I say mixed, because they've had a 4-2-3-1 predominantly throughout this season. But recently that 4-2-3-1 lost 5-0 to Bournemouth. This is the 4-2-3-1 that we've seen against Bournemouth. So we had Murillo in at centre-back. Alongside him was Milenkovic, Ola Aina, who someone City have been linked with, by the way, as a right-back possibility for City next season. Get in the comments below and let me know if you'd be happy with Ola Aina as a right-back option for City next season. I think there's better players out there than him, but I mean, possibly. But that back four is what's mostly been seen this season. In front of them, Dominguez and Anderson as well in that midfield, with Gibbs White behind them, Chris Wood up top. Where are you? There he is. Chris Wood up top, and Hudson-Odoi and Alanga. There he is. Alanga. That's the most common formation. And I think Nuno this season has started to get a little bit frustrated, because this is the side that has been played most commonly this season, but also the side that lost 5-0 to Bournemouth. Once they lost that game 5-0, they reverted to a new system with 5 at the back instead, with wing-backs instead, with these two going as wing-backs, Milenkovic and Murillo, and Morata joining in as the back, with an interesting system up top with Alanga and Chris Wood being the front two almost, and Gibbs White sort of dropping in and out. They tend to have Danilo in there as well sometimes, but Gibbs White dropping in and out of midfield to help out and fill out that midfield. This team went on to beat Brighton 7-0. So they're thinking, right, a sudden change in formation. It maybe felt a little bit stale for Nottingham Forest. Then all of a sudden, bang, change your formation, you win 7-0. A week later, they go and lose with the same formation, the exact same 11 to Fulham. So I'm not sure what he wants to do, whether a stick or two. He reverts to the 4-2-3-1 for Arsenal, and then they get the draw from the Arsenal game. I do think he's going to go with something similar to this against Manchester City, with the 3 at the back. It could well be Danilo instead, which I think is arguably a little bit more mobility, or Sangara is another option for them in that midfield as well. But those two in midfield offer a nice solid back line to midfield to bounce passes off, as well as some mobility and physicality combined. But in terms of Manchester City, there's some interesting aspects to the front players. You know, the legends and the peak players like Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva. These are the sorts of names that you wouldn't have even dreamed of leaving out of the starting 11 months ago, 12 months ago. You would never have thought of this. No chance. But here we are, Manchester City fans, and it's confusing. It's upsetting a little bit. It's unsettling as well. I think we're going to see Ederson in between the sticks with Ruben Diaz and the big man, player of the month, Kusanov very much voted for the fellow Uzbeks getting in there and absolutely spamming the Kusanov vote for. And I mean, he had a great month, to be fair to him. He had a great month, and he's, considering his debut, that first 5 minutes, what a turnaround it's been for Abdulkadir Kusanov. I don't know how many different ways I've pronounced his name. I think that's the third different way I've pronounced his name in this video. So we'll see how many more we've got. Kusanov, there you go, that's 4. Right back is where we're going to suffer all season. I think it's going to be our problem from now until the end of the season. And I think considering the speed, whether Alanga's going to push out wide a little bit or Nico Williams coming down the sides, I think we need to compensate that with a bit of Mateus Nunes speed, because as much as Rico Lewis has got a bit more technicality and ability to push into midfield, I think Nunes does as well, but I think his speed, alongside Kusanov on that side of the pitch, we've got a very fast right side of our defence, which pleases me. A little less so on the other side, not too much pace between the two players of Ruben Diaz and Josko Vardiol, but still plenty of solidity. And Vardiol, by the way, is someone who we could definitely start using as a centre-back option, should we need to rest either Diaz or Husanov, number 5th pronunciation that was there. Vardiol, I think, and Ruben Diaz would be a good centre-back partnership, and Nico O'Reilly, who's proved to be a very good left-back. 2 out of 2 performances, both in the FA Cup, and I thought he was sensational in both games, albeit Plymouth and Leyton Orient. He still looked very, very good in that left-back position, so someone we can definitely use. Nico Gonzalez, for me, and Kovacic should be the midfield too. Been very pleased to see that we've only seen a glimpse of that partnership, and I thought it looked good. It looked very good, and I'd like to see more of that, please, because it's a nice blend of, similar to Forest really, a nice blend of physicality with Nico Gonzalez edging that, to be honest, the physical side of the game, and the technicality of Kovacic. A nice combination. I like them both, and I like them playing together. In front, this is where it gets interesting now, because do you play Kevin De Bruyne, do you play Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, or none of them? I'm going to go with none of them, unfortunately, for those guys. I'm going to go with Marmoush behind the big man, our Viking god, Erling Haaland. Jeremy Doku, left wing, and Savinho, right wing, is what I want to see. And that front 4 is pretty scintillating. Haaland could be a decoy for Marmoush or vice versa, really. And we saw that against Newcastle, where Marmoush got that first half hat-trick. If you're going back and watch those Marmoush goals, the amount of attention that's being afforded to Erling Haaland, and he's the danger, he's the danger, he's the danger. Mark Erling Haaland, and then Marmoush, free as a bird, coming in, tapping in a Savinho assist, as well as getting space in other opportunities to get himself a hat-trick in the first half of that game. So these two together in the middle of the pitch, I think, excites me. But what do you think, Blues? What is your prediction? I will be doing a watch-long. Make sure you tune in for that one as well. Come and join me for that, and also get your predictions in the comments below. I want to know what you think of this one, because I think it's going to be a very close game that we're going to just edge. I'm going to go 2-1, but what do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up silver.